Now, it's been a while since I've done an assembly video, and today I'm taking a look at this machine right here, the FoxAlien XE Ultra 8080. I'm going to show you how to assemble this machine, show you some of the components up close, and then give you my first thoughts about the machine straight out of the box. Now, you can see that this does arrive all in one package, which is convenient. You don't have to wait on multiple parcels, but it is quite a heavy box, so you probably will need two people to move it about. The first thing I need to do is get everything unboxed from this, ready for assembly, and that's what I'm about to do now. So that's everything unboxed. Now you get your two Y-axis which go either side of the machine. Those are these two over here on the right. You then get your X-axis which joins them up across the middle. You also get your Z assembly which is over there on the far left. This is obviously to take your spindle. Now the first thing I will highlight is this machine does not come with a spindle. It does come with a 65mm holder, so therefore you can fit your standard trim router in there or something like the FoxAlien 1.5 kilowatt VFD, and this machine certainly is capable of handling that. In the package as well, you obviously get the control box, and one of the first things I've noticed that I do like about this is there are actually trouble lights on the front of the machine. So should something get triggered on one of those axes, it does tell you exactly which one it is, making life easy. You don't have to go around checking each one. You obviously get the drag chain for all of the cabling, you get the stepper motors which we need to fit on, and you also get a few different accessories such as a light, some clamps, some bits, and obviously the bolts to hold everything together, as well as the user manual to walk you through the entire process. Now, one additional thing I will highlight is this machine does not come with a base frame or a bed for it to sit on, so you need to give consideration to that before you start building. Now, obviously the easiest way to do it is to fix it straight to your workbench or table and then add the spoilboard in later on. But when you do that, what essentially will happen is your machine will sit at one height and then you'll build the spoilboard up even higher, which minimizes the amount of gap or Z travel that you have. So the first tip I would give you is when you come to lay this out, actually fix the Y-axis down to something like some pieces of MDF, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, just so it elevates it up slightly. And then when you put your spoilboard in later on, that basically means that you're still getting the maximum amount of height that you can. And that is exactly what I'm doing. We can already see I've got a spoilboard down here that was from the previous machine, but the Y-axis that will sit either side, they're going to be mounted up slightly, as I say, so I can utilize the maximum space from the machine. So let's get all this cleared up and start laying everything out, ready to assemble it. Now, the first thing I will say is I'm following the FoxAlien instructions, but if I do think anything can be done in a better order, I will let you know during the video. Now, the first thing it advises to do is fix the stepper motors to each of the axes. You have the X-axis and the two Y-axis. Now, if you're unsure between which is the Y1 and the Y2, the Y1 is fitted with the limit switch. Now, the stepper motors themselves are also marked up accordingly, so it does make it extremely easy. And to fit these to the axis, we're going to be using the M5 14 bolts that are supplied in the kit. Now, in terms of fitting the motors themselves, this is really easy. There is this coupler on the end, and this just matches up to the part of the coupler that is on the other side of the ball screw. So you place it in, align them in terms of so the teeth connect together, and then bolt it into the frame. And that's what I'm going to move on and do now, put all three of those stepper motors in place. Now, you'll not see me do it on this video, but I do recommend using a drop of Loctite on any bolts that you are using to assemble the machine. It just holds everything together and minimizes any chance of those bolts vibrating out. So something to take into consideration when you are assembling. But I'll continue fixing all the stepper motors on now. The next thing you'll want to do is get your Y2 axis in the correct position. This is the one that sits on the right hand side of the machine as you are looking at it from the front. Once you've got that in the position that you want it to be in, use the M5 20mm self-tapping screws to hold that down to your worktop or your table. So once your Y2 rail is held down in position, we're then going to take a look at the Y1 rail. Now, we're not going to fix this down just yet, but we need to get it in the correct position so we can then fix the X-axis to the Y-axis gantry. So what we need to do is measure from the edge of this plate here back to the same position on the Y1 rail, and that should be 112 centimeters. So once you've positioned this at the right distance away from the other Y-axis rail, the next thing we need to do is make sure that these carriages are both in the same position on the Y1 rail and on the Y2 rail. The easiest way to do this is to take the offcut of MDF that is in your kit, basically place it against the plate at the front, use the adjustment knob till it just touches that piece of MDF, and then do exactly the same on the other rail. This ensures that both of the carriages are in the exact same position on the left and right hand side, and it's just going to mean the alignment for the x-axis is better when we drop it on in position. So we've got the Y2 axis fixed down, the Y1 axis is still loose, but we've got both the carriages in exactly the same position. Next thing we need to do is pick up the x-axis and place it on these ledges here on both the left and right hand side. And then we're going to be using the M5 12mm bolts in the kit to basically pin those into the carriages and hold it secure. Now what I'd recommend doing is just getting one bolt in first on either side, but do not pinch it up. This is purely just for positioning. And once that starts to go in, then move on and get the other remaining 6 bolts in place. Now for the purpose of filming, I moved my carriages to the front of the machine earlier on, but typically yours should arrive with them at the back of the machine. Now wherever your carriages are, that is the fixing position that you want to put in place first. So in this scenario, my carriage is close to the front of the machine, so I'm actually going to fix this down at the front first. Now the reason we are fixing this in one position first is because ultimately we will jog all of this back later on, just to make sure that the rear of the machine is also aligned correctly. So we'll fix this down now using the self-tapping screws. Now FoxAlien do say you can put all 4 screws in at this point. I've only put 2 in just in case anything needs to shift slightly when we do the alignment at the back. But now we can move on to the next stage. Now at this stage, lay your drag chain out down the side of the machine, and we are looking for the cables for the Y1 and the Y2 stepper motors. The first one for the Y2 will be in between the end of the drag chain and the cable tidy, and they should be labelled up accordingly as Y1 and Y1 motor. Now basically these should just connect in underneath. They can only go in one way, and even though there are 2 connectors, they are different sizes, so it is straightforward. Now the cable for the Y2 motor basically comes out of that holder as well and is labelled up as Y2 motor, so we'll go over the other side and connect that one in. Next you'll need the control box. You'll look at all the connectors, the aviation connectors for this, and just pull out the 4 that we have just connected up, which are basically the ones for the Y2 motor and the 1 Y motors. And we're going to connect those to the respective ports on the back of the control box. Now the reason that we are doing just these for the moment is it means we can turn the machine on and jog the x-axis forward, as say, to check the alignment front and back on the machine. So I'll get these all connected up now. Next, take the USB cable, connect this to the back, and connect the other end to your laptop or your PC. Take the power cable again, plug that in, connect the other end to your wall socket and turn everything on. Take the USB stick also provided in your kit and plug that into your PC. Once you have connected the memory stick, navigate to the correct drive on my computer. For me, this is the F drive. It may be a different letter for you. Open that up, head to the XE Ultra folder, open that up into software, and then look for the PDF in this folder. If you open up this PDF, it will give you some links to different software compatible with this machine. It will also tell you the driver for the machine, which is crucial to allow the CNC machine to talk to your PC or laptop. Click on this link and it will take you to a website. Website will look like this. Scroll down to the first exe file, ch341ser.exe, select that, and it will take you to the download page for this particular driver. Click download, and then once the file is finished downloading, you can then open that up and continue with the installation of the driver. If you see any security messages, just click yes to continue. Now at this stage, make sure that your USB cable from the control board has been connected to your laptop and PC. Click install to allow the driver to install on your machine. This can take a few seconds, but once it's done, it will prompt us with a message to say it was successful. There we are. We'll click OK, close this down. Now what we're going to do is press the Windows key and we're going to type Device Manager, and once you've found this, open it up. Then come down to the port section, expand this out, and we can see a reference that looks similar to that driver that we just downloaded, CH340. Make a note of the COM number to the right hand side of this. This is important as it is the number we will need to select within the next stage of the process. We're now going to come back to the USB memory stick. We're going to open up the folder that says Candle. This is the control software for the machine. Then open up candle.exe. Now at this point, if not done so already, make sure that your control board is turned on. Now with Candle open, we're going to head up to the service menu at the top, come down to settings, and in here we can see there is a connection section. We're going to select from this drop down menu the COM number of the one that you just saw. So for me it was COM 11. Again, your number may be different. Select that. Make sure that the number next to it says 115200. Once all that is set, come down and click OK. And what we can now see is all this information has just appeared on screen. It also says alarm on the right hand side. This is just indicating that the software has now connected to the CNC machine. From this point, click the unlock button and we can now start to jog the Y-axis back and forth. Now the goal that we want to do here is to move the axis to the other end of the machine. If your axis is at the front on the Y, then we'll be sending it to the back. If it is at the back, you'll be bringing it to the front. Now within the software itself, we've got a jog panel that we can use to navigate the CNC machine. We are just focusing on the forward and the back at the moment in order to jog the Y-axis. Do a very quick test to begin with and just make sure that it moves as expected. Now what I'm going to do is jog this all the way to the back so we can continue to fix the back of the machine down in position. This is moving in at 10mm increments. You can increase this to a larger number if you want. So for example, we'll do 100mm and this will just allow us to get there a bit quicker. Now we're nearly at the end. I'm just going to reduce that step down just back to 10mm and jog it as far to the back as I possibly can. There it is, it's hit the limit stop so we can't go any further. At this stage I'm now going to fit 2 screws in the back here and then ultimately jog it all the way back to the other end before fitting the 4 remaining screws on this Y-axis. So we'll get 1 screw in, get a second one in, now we're going to jog this all the way back to the other end and put all the remaining screws in and just ensuring that this travels freely. Now whilst everything should technically be square at this phase, the best thing to do is measure diagonally from corner to corner in both directions, and ultimately the measurements should be exactly the same. So come in with your tape measure, go from a fixed position on the far left hand corner to this front right corner. Take note of the measurement of a particular point and then do the exact same on the opposite direction, and as I say, the measurements should match up, meaning the frame is square. We're now going to jog the machine back to the front. Listen to the machine as you do this. It should sound consistent. If you find that things sound a little bit tighter in certain areas, it may be worth loosening up the screws and repeating the process until it feels that everything is aligned. But if we now jog this back to the front and everything sounds consistent, I can put the 4 remaining screws in on the Y1 axis. Excellent, so that's just jogged from the front to the back and ultimately it's been smoothing the entire process. So I can now get the rest of the bolts put in and that secures the frame down. So all 8 screws are now in on both of the Y-axis, but one final time I'm just going to jog this back and forth and make sure that it is running smooth before moving on to the next step. Perfect, let's move on. Next we're going to mount the Z assembly to the X-axis carriage. Now this does have a little bit of weight in it. You can try resting it on something if that helps. What I would suggest doing is getting 1 bolt in first just to be able to take the weight and then focus on the other ones. So now we're going to lift this up, put that in position. Give it a couple of turns. I say you don't want to pinch it up all the way, but just enough to actually take the weight. We can then look at the other bolts, get those in position. And once we have 2 in place and they are gripping, it does mean it will take the weight off the Z assembly. So we can move on to the other 2 on the other side. Once all 4 bolts are in place, just go around, make sure they're all pinched up nice and tight. Next, we're going to install the spindle holder using the M5 16mm bolts. Similar process again. Get one bolt in place, make your life easier before moving on to the others. Now, just before you tighten all these bolts up, there is a little bit of play in the holder. Take something like a set square and just check that it is looking as square as possible against your bed. This doesn't mean that it is perfectly trammed in, it will just get you as close as possible. So do a few checks, make sure that everything is looking as square as possible, and then pinch all of the bolts up. Next, we're going to be fitting the drag chain support on the back of the X-axis using the M4 8mm bolts. There's just one bolt on either side, and there's a pre-done hole for this. So place it in, give it a few turns, make sure that is in, and then move on to the one on the other side before pinching them both up. We'll now move on to installing the additional drag chain brackets. There are 3 of them. 2 of them have kinks. One with the kink will go on the back of the Z assembly here. The other one will go on the side of the X-axis. This is using the M4 8mm bolts. So we'll put those in place when I use the right Allen key and give them a few turns and tighten them up. It should be positioned so that the plate is on the top of the bracket as opposed to underneath. We'll now repeat the process for the same bracket but on the side of the X-axis. And finally, the last bracket that doesn't have the kink tucks under here, and this should be the opposite way down in that the plate is towards the bottom. Same bolts to put this in position, and we'll repeat the process. Next, we need to move on to putting our drag chain in place. You may find it easier to disconnect some of the cables that are originally connected from earlier on. Now, at each end of the drag chain, there are 2 little holes basically to fix it down to its relevant bracket or plate. And to do this, we'll use the M4 6mm capped screws. We'll put 2 in each position on the ends of the drag chain. This can be a little bit fiddly. It's often better to start at one end of the drag chain, then work your way around the various S-bends. I will point out the threads on these are quite fine, so do be delicate when you are tightening them up. You only want to pinch them up, not put too much pressure on. So all 4 fixing points of the drag chain are now in place and secure. What we're going to do is go around and connect all of the cables up. Again, very simple. Everything is labelled, so just match the relevant cable on one end to the other end. X-axis limit switch, X-axis limit switch. Push them together, click in, and all done. We'll move on now and get the rest of the cables put in place for all the remaining connections. We'll now continue to connect all of the remaining cables at the back of the control box. Again, everything is clearly labelled, making it very simple to do so. It will obviously depend on where you are mounting your control box. There is enough wire, but try to make sure all of the wires are supported to save putting any strain on the connectors. And finally, we'll finish off by installing the work light that goes on the side here and the cable tidy clip that goes on the side here, using the M4 8mm bolts. So we'll put this in position. We'll move on to the work light. This mounts from the back of the plate. And we can finish up by connecting the cable for the little work light. Now at this stage you may have some spare bolts left. Some are for the laser fixing plate, the others are just spare ones. You will also have an ER11 collet to insert in order to use that, but it doesn't come with a spindle, so I'm not 100% sure why they provide that. At this point, turn your machine back on, reconnect it to your computer, and just jog it all the way around the bed area. Also make sure that the Z-axis moves up and down, and basically just check that everything is running as it should. Excellent, it's all working as it should. So that is the build done on the FoxAlien XE Ultra AT80. Obviously we've still got to fit a spindle to this, but on the surface it is looking an impressive machine. We've got a solid frame on this, we've got thick linear rails, we've got ball screws, high powered NEMA 23 stepper motors. All in all, looking a pretty impressive machine for what is essentially 3 parts that you're bolting together. So looking forward to getting a spindle in this and getting it up and running properly to see what it can be done. I'm almost slightly disappointed it's a 65mm holder, because I do suspect This could even take a much bigger spindle, like an 80mm 2.2. But let's see what comes in the next video. Hope you found that useful. There will be a link to this machine down in the description area. Thank you all very much for watching, and final thanks as always goes to my patrons. I'll see you all on the next episode.